Going.
All right. Hey, welcome everybody. Thank you today for joining us on Veterans Sports Voice Podcast with myself and my fellow brother in arms, Ian McCants over here. Y'all, today we got a very special guest as my phone is going off because I forgot to turn my phone off. But we
Tisk,
got a
tisk,
very
tisk.
special guest. Uh-oh. Yeah, we got a very special guest. True Arkansas Razorback legend, J.J. Meadors, a former wide receiver who delivered one of the most iconic plays in program history, Alabama killer, which I know Ian surely appreciates that. Um, also, y'all, I had to be when I was watching JJ, I was lucky to see him because I was in the military at the time in the Army, and I didn't get to see all the games, but I did get to see that one. But y'all, I did not know the man was a four-time national champion in track and field, and he
Mm.
competed under legendary coach John McDonnell, who like reset. Just he made the program what it is today. There are so many questions, but before that, you guys, please welcome to the Veteran Sports Podcast, JJ Meadors. And Mr. JJ, thank you so much for being here with us today, sir.
Man, thank you guys for having me, and honestly, I'm not gonna pass up too many opportunities to talk about Razorback sports and stuff like that. So man, I love it, and again, just thank you guys for having me here tonight.
All right.
The honor is all ours, man. Honor is all ours. You know what? Because you were a former Alabama killer. I'm going to let my co-host Ian McCants, an Alabama, just a blessed Alabama, a biased Alabama fan is what he calls himself. I'm going to let
Right,
him start
right,
off this podcast today, Mr. Meadows, if you don't mind.
right,
Absolutely.
right. So I don't know like if you've talked to an Alabama fan truly from their perspective, right? I think that a lot of times we talk about did the ball hit the ground or not. But I gotta fill you in on the whole perspective, right? So I'm
Absolutely.
I'm I'm true blue Alabama from Atmore, Alabama, population of 4,000 people.
Yeah.
All we had was the Crimson Tide. So I love them.
Absolutely.
I love them. So, we were so arrogant. I remember a newspaper clipping article, right? And this was 95, and it was like, will Arkansas beat Alabama? And it said, when pigs fly. So so we're just down there arrogant, not thinking in a million years that Arkansas would ever beat us. And yes, it was a little, tough to stomach, if you feel that the ball did hit the ground. But just tell me from your perspective what it meant, to you as a player to have that moment and have your organization defeat an organization for the first time in history.
You know what? Before you answer
Man,
that, can we show a video of that, JJ? Would you mind us showing that video?
yeah, absolutely. Let's take a look at it.
Because during that year, Arkansas scored several different ways off of this one play right here.
Yeah, we did. And the interesting thing about it. Interesting thing about it is that was actually what we call a special play. It was a 2-point play. We really wanted to use it in 2-point situations, in the game situations. So I think the funny thing about it is that I caught a pass that got us down to like the 4 and got us down to the 4-yard line. And then we ran 3 plays and the ball really didn't come to me. So on that 4th down, I was kind of looking at the sideline hey, let's go with it. And then that play call comes in, and basically what it is, it's a Z choice. And so, and basically, I could have gone all the way across the formation. I could have just, if it was a zone, I would have hooked up right there in the end zone. But it ended up being man to man, and they bumped it to where the guy, when I was going across the formation, they bumped it to the inside DB, which turned it into a whip. So I just pushed
Yep.
in. And once it gets right there with the whip call, I mean, he's just beat on the lineman. So it's,
Right.
he can't let me go across the formation. So and I knew that. So I really didn't even run a heck of a whip because I knew I would be open, and I knew that Alabama defense had been stingy. I knew Barry
Right.
wouldn't have. I knew he
But did
wouldn't
you
have.
did you catch the ball?
Oh, absolutely. And hey, I tell this story though, but man, I don't mean to be facetious here, but I tell people I made tougher catches while I was at Arkansas. So I made tougher catches.
Right, right, right.
But man, if you listen to my quarterback, Barry Lundy, who is now the offensive coordinator at Illinois, He said, man, I saw it. You know, we both knew, like, once we saw what happened and the bumps and this and that, like, we know what's about to happen. And so he
Right,
said,
right.
I knew you were going to be open. And I just flipped the ball out there. And he said, I didn't really throw it. I just tried to, you know, just make sure he got it to me. And basically, the tip just went into the ground. So, man, I went down and got my hands underneath the ball. But the thing what a lot of people don't realize is that it had been raining pretty much that whole game. So
Okay.
pretty much the second, third quarter, early fourth quarter, it was raining, you know, and it was coming down. So when I came up and people were like, the ball was moving around a little bit, I was like, notice I'm not wearing any gloves because it was raining and the balls were slick. But, you know, just on the case, man, I caught it. It was low, but both my hands were underneath the ball and it didn't touch. But I've spoken to many, many Alabama fans since then, and they do not want to hear that. So,
No.
and it's just for program-wise, man. Yeah, exactly. But program-wise, man, the 2 years before we came to Alabama, man, they beat us like 70-7, something like that. The previous year I was there, my sophomore year, they killed us. We lost a tough game to them the year before in Fayetteville. I think we lost by like 6 or 7, something like that. And but just for us, man, I came into Arkansas the first year that we actually played in the SEC. So my freshman year was the first year we played in the SEC. And people, man, when you playing in the SEC with Southwest Conference teams, SWC teams, man, it's not even fair. So we really got kicked for 3 years. And so for us to go to Alabama, play a hard-fought game there, hang in there, defense played lights out 4 quarters, and gave us a chance to win it at the end and to win that, and then eventually get on to the SEC championship game. And it was, you know, for us, it was just, you know, things came full circle, and it was, you know, for a tough 3 years, it was kind of good to end my career on that note, and just being known for that, man. You know, when you're 18 and 21, you do a lot of stuff that you can be known for. Some of it good, some of it bad. So when I look back at my 20s, the one thing that about me is beating Alabama, I'll take that every time.
Understood.
And you know, Ian, there's a stat that nobody knows about, really, and I'm surprised that you haven't mentioned this to me. But Arkansas's defense in the second half only gave up 88 yards total in the second half. But y'all was just about as good as we were, because it was a defensive slugfest that second half.
But you know, we you know, that's Alabama football. Even in the 90s, the year that we won a championship with Jay Barker, man. You know, so we were never expecting to really just blow anybody out the water anyway. You know, so that was kind of like status quo. You know,
and I think Danny Ford, our coach at that time, he had played for Bear Bryant at Alabama. So they were very, very similar. I tell people all the time being around Danny Ford, and he wasn't necessarily like an X and O coach, because honestly, most head coaches at that time, because you do have offensive, defensive coordinators, but he knew how to keep you in games. He didn't go on fourth down. He punted when he needed to punt.
I met him one time. He was recruiting one of my high school classmates who you probably know. His name was Norman Nero. I think he played. Yeah. So he was, you know, all-state running back. You know, basketball. He go to Arkansas. He come back to us, man. And you know, he dunking in our gym, all this. He come back, his head hanging like, man, I'm in there playing Corliss and Scott. These boys killing me, you know. And we were in shock. But so he was recruiting Norman. And he came to my high school and gave me his little business card. So I met him one time. Cool dude.
Norman Nero, he's a good friend of mine, and a freak athlete. And I think a lot of people don't realize, man, that when you're playing in the SEC, even guys who are not playing a lot are the best player in their hometown, all state, all conferences. So you get the chance to meet a lot of guys. And Norman Nero actually dunked on me one time in the high school. He was a freshman. I didn't know he was like that.
Yeah,
I didn't realize he on top of my head real quick.
Norman was the man. He was.
He moved back to, I think he'd been somewhere up north, but he moved back to Northwest Arkansas last year.
Okay, yeah. I think we're Facebook friends, him and his younger brother Skylar. Yep. So Small world, man.
So JJ, I got a question for you because you played under Danny Ford, who won the national championship at Clemson, if not mistaken. But you also, so first off, you were that first class that played their whole football career in the Southwest Conference. I'm sorry, in the Southeastern Conference. So there was no Southwest Conference days for you in those. But we also had one of the just kind of darkest moments. We had a coach last one game, and that was Jack Crow. Tell me what happened with the Citadel. Tell me about that. What that had to be a gut punch because if I'm not mistaken, I watched it. You and your mom and dad were in a Chinese restaurant when you found out the coach got fired. Tell me about that.
Man, this is man. So my dad had been a high school and college coach, and so we played first game we played the Citadel. We ended up losing that game. And so it was like my first game. So we leave the stadium and we're trying to go somewhere to eat. And, Fayetteville is super small then. Everything is packed. We go back to my dorm room, wait a couple of hours. We're driving around and we go to a restaurant in Fayetteville called Panda. It was like a restaurant, a Chinese restaurant, and it was like a buffet or something. It was like the only place that we could get into. So we go in there and I'm wearing my sweats and everything, and my mom and dad, and I'm pissed that we lost the game. But also, man, I'm so embarrassed because I only played like 5 or 6 snaps. And that's a true freshman. I got out there and I played every game, but I never sat on the bench. I never played in the game probably 3 years where I didn't get at least one touch. And so I'm mad that we lost the game. But my dad was like, man, you first college game, man, you got out there, you got to play, and your friends were sitting in the stands, red shirting, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm just sitting there pounding, and this guy comes up and he says, hey, tough game today. I said, yes, sir. He says, what are y'all gonna do for who you think they're gonna name as the and I was like, what? And they was like, get Crows out of here. It was kind of surreal. And then
You found out by the first tweet.
Yes, exactly. So we go back to the dorm. I remember my parents were going back to the hotel. So I go back to the dorm and I pull up at the dorm and everybody just kind of standing outside, and I guess the word had kind of started to spread at that point. And so that's
crazy.
Hey, that's really not the way you want to start your college career off. One game, you lose to a team that you should have beat, but Citadel ended up having a pretty good year that year. If I remember correctly, I think they ended up beating a couple of Power 5 teams, and they had a good team. But that was back when you had guys that stayed 4 years and they understood the system, and
right.
A lot of seniors on that team, and we were new offense coordinator, new offense, and the offense just basically came out and laid an egg.
Right.
Right.
We also had an athletic director, Frank Broyles, who didn't put up with that. Like he had an expectation, and that was for better or for worse. That was Frank Broyles right there.
I think, Jack Rose, the guy that recruited me, so I have I always have a special place in my heart for him because a lot of guys did not want to recruit a 5'5", 145-pound receiver to come and play in the SEC, and he. The first time he saw my film, he's like, you're our guy. But I don't think Frank Broyles wanted him to be the coach going into the SEC. So he really was. I think he was pretty much on a short leash. We had a decent year prior to that. I think had won 6 games, played in the Independence Bowl the year before, lost to Georgia. And so I don't think he was the guy that they wanted to usher in, the SEC. And so he was really on a short leash. And you can't lose to the Citadel at home if you're Arkansas and then expect to be coaching next week either. So, it was just it was a very, very tough situation for us. But and that ended up being a really rough year too. But
right. And speaking of recruiting, so did you have to get recruited simultaneously, both track and field and football? And looking at the way that the landscape is now, okay, you're a father and you're going with your son through the process. How would you approach that now?
Well, man, I think the thing was so different now is that guys did not get offered early. I mean, like you really, I mean, I can't even really think of a bunch of guys that, and I was in Louisiana with Marshall Faulk and Peyton Manning and Eddie Kennisons and Ward Duns and those guys were my contemporaries and guys we just didn't really get offered early. So, you play you were playing your senior year basically for offers. And also too, then you're playing 3 or 4 games and sending VHS tapes out all over the country, FedEx. So it was a much different time. So, but man, Louisiana football, man, it's so highly thought of across the country when you start talking in recruit circles, man. During that time, and even all the way up until Hurricane Katrina, Louisiana produced the most Power 5 D1 football players in the country per capita.
Right.
Probably for like 40 years.
Right.
And that's a little bit with Hurricane Katrina because a lot of people moved out of South Louisiana.
Right.
Right up until that, so if you were a 1,000-yard receiver, scored 20 touchdowns, and you played in Louisiana, people came from all over the country. And so we had guys at my high school that went to Nebraska, Auburn, LSU. And so, I was very fortunate to be in a good program, had a good senior year. But I didn't hear probably from anybody until October, November timeframe.
Okay.
So it's a little more nerve wracking because you're not walking around with a D1 scholarship in hand. And then I had my junior year, my 4x1 team was second in state, and I was second in state in 100 meters. So people were starting to recruit, but back then, track and field was not a full ride. So I wasn't going to school and paying money to go to school. So I was going to take a football scholarship anywhere that would pay for me to go to college. I knew I probably wasn't going to be an NFL guy, and so my mom and dad just wanted to make sure that I got somewhere where I could be for 4 years and where I got my degree. And then, man, I just ended up having a heck of a senior year in track, man. I set a Louisiana state record in the 55 meters, broke the state record, set a composite record for all classes, went to New York, ran in the national championships, placed third there. Probably if I had a little more experience, I probably would have won it, but that was my first time at a big meet. And just, country guy to Ruston, Louisiana, finishing the top 3 in the nation. I thought that was pretty good. Outdoor, I ran 10:28. Fastest time I ran that year was 10:28. I ran 10:40 to win state. I ran 21 flat, I think, to win the 200 or 4x1.
Oh, wow.
State. Yeah, so a lot of the track stuff came really after, I think I probably took that next level my senior year, and then all of a sudden, you're one of the top recruits in the country, 2-sport athletes, and so it was. When I look back in September, October, that time frame, I wasn't on anybody's radar pretty much at all. And then at the end of the year, I'm a blue chip and this and that. So it just
Right.
For me, I don't want to say it happened overnight because it took a lot of work to get to that point. But it literally was Christmas, and I had no idea where I was going to school or anything like that.
Right. Did your parents give you a lot of latitude to make that decision yourself, as the offer started coming, or were you guided pretty heavily? And, what would you do now? Like if you had a son that was in the process, how would you handle that?
Well, I wanted to go. Well, the first team that came and really offered me was Tulane.
Okay.
And Greg Davis had been the coach at Tulane. And he actually ended up at Arkansas as the offensive coordinator. But he had just gotten fired, and so literally, I think like the athletic director and maybe like a dean came and did my visit. And so I was like, I was going to Tulane, and my mom was like, "No, we're not going to New Orleans." So yeah, like we're going to. And my mom was like, "Tulane, good school, but you in New Orleans," and I wasn't like a wild child or anything, but I had a good time. She knew I was going to have a good time where I was.
New Orleans,
yeah. And so as things kind of started to materialize, and I was very familiar with the track program and John McDonald, and then my dad had coached with Bill Johnson, who he was a defensive line coach at that time, and he's the guy that ever offered me. Those guys had coached together. He had known me since I was fourth or fifth grade. So just the relationships, the track and field, it was just kind of a perfect storm, and everything just kind of worked out to where I was able to come here and play two sports, and so it just worked out for the best. And I think today, man, I sell insurance full-time, but I've also been a trainer for over 25 years now. I've had kids that have gone all over the country and played, and I think I hear people say this a lot, and this is one thing I always talk about when I get a chance to talk to parents. I talk to kids. I talk on podcasts. People say kids have changed. I'm like, these kids have freaking been here before. How did they change? The kids have not changed. The parents have changed.
Right.
The expectations have changed. The college coaches have changed. But the kids, they only know what they see and what we allow them to do. And honestly, some of this stuff is I hate it. Like, I want the kids to be able to get paid and make the NIL money. I want that. I was in college, making money for the university. My picture was everywhere. I was on cups. My mom brought home cups from the game with my picture on there that they were drinking out of, selling for $10 each. And I was on a program. They sold my jersey in the stadium. And I was struggling, to eat on Sundays, like literally. I was struggling to get to the mall or get to Walmart, like that. And so I understand that piece of it. But the one thing that has not changed since then is that 99.5% of these guys are not going to make enough money playing sports to live the rest of their lives comfortably. That number is never going to change. So I want to see people that's, you want to get the NIL money, but the NIL money is enough money for you to start your life off and to have a good life and not to live forever off of that money.
Right.
So when I see people and they're just jumping from school to school, they're not networking, they're not figuring out what they're going to do after football. And so that's the part I hate about it. I see a lot of kids now that have a sense of entitlement. Like, they just think they're supposed to play. When I went to university, Ron Dickerson and Tracy Caldwell were better football players than me when I got there. I didn't like standing over there by Houston Nutt. Houston Nutt was my receivers coach. I didn't want to be standing over there beside him. But I knew those guys out there were better ball players than I were. I was 150 pounds. I was 145 pounds. I was 5'5". I was barely benching 250. Like, I was not ready to go out there and be a number one guy in the SEC, but I had guys that I could learn from, and, guys that taught me and helped me become the player that I eventually developed into. So, I just want people just to be more realistic about it. You're probably not going to get $1 million in NIL, but we can get you in a position where you can play football 4 more years. You can have enough money to start your life off the right way, but it's not going to be easy. It's going to be very hard, probably going to be the hardest thing you've ever done in your life. And nobody's going to – if you go to a college and you're a freshman, guys who have been there 3 years are not going to say, here you go, take some of my snaps. Like, they're not giving up their snaps. So, you just got to be able to go in there and fight for it. I think most of the kids that we see in the transfer portal these days are just not mentally prepared to play and compete at that level. It's not physical.
Right.
It has nothing to do with physical ability. The thing that separates you in that locker room are guys that love that competition. Even though me and you are buddies, I'm not giving you my snaps. And I'm going to go out there every Saturday and do it. So, but I just think the kids, they just need to understand it's not easy. It's like they got everything is instant. They got email, right? They got FaceTime, so everything they get is instant. They have microwaves. Like, we didn't grow up with instant gratification. So I think they just want things instantly now. So I think that hurts. And I think also some of the college coaches, man, if I'm 60 years old, I'm probably not doing TikToks. And I'm just not. Because you know why? I'm a 60-year-old ass man and I've been coaching 30 years. And that's why people keep saying Nick Saban left because he couldn't win. He didn't want to do this. It's not because he couldn't. He just like, man, I'm not freaking giving a
You know,
kid $10,000 to come on a visit. Like, and guys who have done this are not going to do that.
they
And
act like
so
he's not
I
almost
like
80 years
those
old,
coaches who
man. He's
I
like,
still like the no nonsense coaches. I like the coaches.
Right.
right.
Well, the one thing I see with
I'm 52 years old. I'm not TikToking to sign a 17-year-old kid. I'm not. You know what I'm saying? Especially when I know I'm going to take this kid and who's just basically a freaking lump of something that needs to be molded into. You know, I have something to give. I have more to give this kid than he really does have to give.
Right,
So you know, so I hate that part about it, but you know, I think there's still some very good guys in business.
Well, I wish for me, you know, as a coach, from a coaching point of view, a lot of these kids are chasing money, and I understand that, but they also, if you have a shot at getting in the league, you need to stay with a team a coach that's going to develop you, get you there, because people don't realize, like, you developed some great receivers behind you, Anthony Eubanks, Anthony Lucas, like they watched you play. You developed them into some, and Anthony Lucas made some great catches, and so did Eubanks. You know, I think we're getting away from that, you know, because kids are chasing the money, and you can't blame them, because there's not a rules in place to kind of help guide them, and that's the scary part about it. And I totally understand what you're saying, but I want to back up for just a second here before we go into something else. People don't realize. So you're a 4-time national championship in track and field, correct?
Well, team, not individual, but team.
But team, yes. But there was also another national championship that came from your high school too, Scotty Thurman. Yeah. You said you had a funny story. We were talking behind the scenes. Fill us in on that story right there, big guy.
Well, first of all, Scotty, man, we've been, you know, I've known about Scotty probably since because we're the same age. So he was All-State as a sophomore and as a junior at Ruston. So I was very familiar with him. And then we also played in the summer league. Because I played basketball, I was on the track team, and I also played football. So I was very familiar with Scotty. And so my dad had opened up a State Farm agency after coaching for 20-something years, decided to go back in coaching, and we moved to Ruston, Louisiana. And so we moved to Ruston, Louisiana during the summer. And during the summer, of course, Scotty was all over the country, Boston Shootout, AAU. You know, he, Randy Livingston, and all those guys were traveling all over the country and getting recruited. So I hadn't met Scotty. Like, I had been in Ruston probably for almost 2 months, but I hadn't met him personally. And so school starts. And so my mom was actually working at the school. And she said, hey, man, this kid, Scotty Thurman. I said, yeah, man, I know him. She said, well, he works in the office. He's like student body president. Like, you guys need to meet, blah, blah, blah. And so this is probably like the first week of school. So maybe like the second week of school, I come to school that morning and I'm walking. So I'm walking into the school and I can see like Scotty, and he's like, you know, he's like 6'5", 6'6". So he's like the tallest person in the building. And he's like way on this end. So I can see him, but I'm not thinking anything. So I'm walking, he's walking. And so I notice like, and I look up and he's like walking like right towards me. So I don't really know the guy. I just kind of move over a little bit, and I noticed he kind of moves over, you know. So I was like, is this dude messing with me, you know? So I'm walking, and so he walks up to me. He said, you JJ Meadors? And I said, yeah. I said, you Scotty Thurman, right? He said, yeah. He said, man, listen. He said, ever since I got back to Ruston, people keep telling me, you need to meet JJ Meadors. You need to meet JJ Meadors. You need to meet JJ Meadors. He said, man, Ruston High is my school. JJ Meadors needs to meet Scotty Thurman, like that. And so I'm kind of standing there, and I'm like, is this dude? And he just falls out. He just cracks up laughing, man, sticks his hands out, shakes my hand. And then, bro, like he you know, if you've been a coach's son and you've been a new kid in school 2 or 3 times, man, sometimes it's hard. And, man, just him embracing me, helping me through the recruiting process and kind of going through that process at the same time, man, it was really big. We really just been lifelong friends. We really just been lifelong friends ever since that happened. And you know, played on the same basketball team together. And like, I mean, I literally just talked to the guy this morning. So, and it was great, man. And it was also great being here during that time with Nolan And those guys were Scotty and Corliss and Clint McDaniel and Corey Beck, and just watching those guys compete and play at a high level and win a national championship and play for a national championship. And honestly, that really was motivation to me, to finish up. And it was great to, when I look back, we said, Ruston, we got the shot and the catch at Ruston High School for the Razorbacks. And I'm very proud to be a part of that.
Okay. Well, hey, JJ, sorry about that. We had a little bit of technical difficulty. We lost our Alabama connection right there, my guy. I think he can hear us now.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So, Ian, do you have a question here, or do you want me to kick into my next one? I wasn't sure where you were at there, big guy, on this one.
Yeah, I actually had a question, man. I love recruiting and the aspect of it, and I was listening to you closely. I knew that you owned an insurance agency, but you mentioned that your father did the same thing. So, was it's just like a family mission for you, or do you see the avenue here to really educate a lot of these high schoolers that you were speaking of that have no financial sense? You have the key to a lot of wealth if people know the thing about policies and things like that. So, how do you feel about that?
Man, I think, and it's funny that you mentioned that, because Scotty and I were just talking recently about financial literacy and things that our parents didn't. Neither one of our parents had money, really. So, but my parents were college educated. They were hardworking people, but I didn't know anything about credit or about insurance or about debt ratio or anything like that, or even just get a Discover card in my room and running up $350, on that when I was in college. So I didn't have any awareness of that. And so I think one of the things that we do now is that we do offer financial literacy to young athletes, and a lot of athletic departments they're kind of starting to do that, but there's also kind of that gray area between you get money from the university and the university helping you do something with that money. And we just had there was just a situation down at the University of Missouri. Some of you may or may not know about that. I don't want to get into specifics on that, but one of their coaches ended up having to go coach somewhere else because of some stuff that had to do with the NIL money. So it's good to be able to have guys like myself and Scotty who've been around and they understand the financial literacy piece. I tell my people all the time, there's 5 things that you need, right? You need liability insurance on your car and on your home, right? You're going to need savings account, right? You're going to need some life insurance. You're going to need long-term disability, short-term disability. You get those 5 things. Now we can protect these assets that you're about. Now you're ready to earn, make some money and keep that money protected. And so
Can I tell you my best pitch? Can I tell you my best pitch? I sold life insurance for a little bit, and I had a gentleman, he was there with his wife, and he was like, if I'm dead, why should I get a policy for her? She's just going to be with another man. And I looked him in his eye, and I said, well, get her the policy because at least she'll be selective.
Yeah. Hey, I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm gonna steal that one from you. But it's just, but also too, man, things have changed so much in the last 20 years. And like I said, man, I never talked to kids. I always talked about just getting a degree and just being very. I think a lot of kids they want to go to college, and that's great. But realistically, when you go to college, you need to have a pretty good understanding of what you want to do with it, or you'll just be there for 4 years, wasting time, wasting your eligibility. And so, we want kids to kind of have a plan. Like my daughter, I have a daughter right now who's a senior in high school, and she likes sports. She never loved it though. So even her high school coach said, and it seems like, you would push your daughter. I said, man, listen, my daughter's a straight A student. She made 2 B's since she's been in high school. She wants to be a nurse, right? So I know daddy's money is not going to be wasted because we're going into nursing. I know that once she graduates nursing school, that she's going to have a career that's going to be able to make money. And I just see a lot of these guys that, we just got to help them be a little more prepared once they get there so they can maximize it. So they need to be networking. They don't need to go get a general studies degree or a degree that they can't get a job in moving forward and stuff. And so, those are the things that I would like, I think those are the things that I would like to see. I think sometimes in a recruiting situation, I think parents are so nice in that they don't want to ask the hard questions. They don't want to talk about life after football. They always want to talk about best case. If things go great, yeah, okay, yeah, obviously if things go great, your son's going to play 3 years, you're going to go to the NFL. What if he gets an ACL tear? What if he can't play football anymore? They're going to hang in with him, or he's going to still be in school there. What if he gets caught with weed? Or y'all going to kick him out of school, or what, so I think those are kind of some of the questions that I wish parents would ask. I wish they would not just send their kids to school with no plan, have some type of, career in mind that you're going to work towards that. And that may change over the 4 years that you were there. But, just make sure that you do have some kind of plan, that you don't waste that opportunity and don't waste that resource.
And that's a great perspective, because I heard coaches all the time, and I tell this to kids all the time, hey, have a plan, because at some point, even if you go and have the legendary NFL career, the air is going to be let out of that football at some point. So you got to go professional with something else, right? I mean, that's basically what you're saying there, and I absolutely agree with that 100%.
And I tell people, man, just 99.5% of you guys are not going to make enough money playing sports to where you're not going to have to do something else. Right. And so I think that part as a mentor or as a parent, that's where we have to be. I don't really care where you go to school or what coach. Like, we'll let you make that decision. But, there's some things that we want to monitor while you're there, and make sure you're on process to be able to have a good life after the University of Arkansas or after school. And I think that's where we're really lacking as far as the athletic departments and some of the things. I think we really need to be more hands on there if you really care about these kids. And so
absolutely.
And I think and I think they're good guys and bad guys in every profession. Good lawyers, bad lawyers, bad doctors, good coaches, bad coaches. And so we just have to be, but as a parent and as a community, we just kind of, we need to be a little more forward thinking when it comes to that piece.
So before we move forward a little to our next segment here, I got a question from Athletes Forum podcast. Jamal, welcome there. He wants to know what your 40 time is right now.
Man, I don't know. It takes me about 30 minutes to get out of bed in the morning right now. So I was cracking up because I had one of my teammates. He said at least once a month you should squat as heavy as you can squat and run as fast as you can. And I was like, man, listen. I said, I work for Allstate, not Aflac. I have to go to work. I gotta go to work tomorrow. So man, I wouldn't even, but honestly, man, just at 51, I just running full speed is not on my bingo card for 2026.
And it shouldn't be. So hey, we got to talk, and this has been so great so far. I hadn't even got to ask you the obvious question yet. So JJ, before we go further, Coach Ryan Silverfield, what do you like about him? What do you think about the hire? And also, in the past, you said that Arkansas coaches have done a bad job helping high school coaches develop in the state. And talk to me about that for a minute.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I think Silverfield, man, he's not outside of college football circles. He's probably not a well-known name as some of the other guys that obviously our delusional Arkansas fans thought we should have, been able to pull the trigger on. And I think sometimes the fans here feel like Northwest Arkansas is the center of the universe. Northwest Arkansas is a great place, but there's some really good places out there in college football with some good atmosphere. And when you haven't been successful, this is a good job, but it's not a top-tier job right now. And we have to be honest about that. I think the best thing that Silverfield did is that he had a lot of connections in this area. And he did a great job of pulling in some of the top recruits. Danny Bill, he was able to get Danny Bill, who was committed to Oklahoma State. We got him flipped. We got Anthony Kennedy, who was going to Miami. And I'm fortunate that I know both of those kids. And so those were big gets, because I think when you start thinking in terms of what's the difference between the SEC and everywhere else, it's linemen. And it's not the size of the lineman, it's the athletic ability. The SEC, you're going to have big athletes playing on the O-line. You have big athletes playing on the D-line. And that's really, you're going to be able to find skilled guys that can run, catch, jump. But I would say outside of having a quarterback, that's where we got to hang our head, and that's where Sam feels short. I think Sam came in and saying that he was going to build and recruit bigs, and we didn't have the bigs to compete. So I think Silverfield did a great job of just finishing up this recruiting class. Well, not finished because we still have the second signing day, but he's off to a good start. Got some key guys in state. And Arkansas is never going to have 10, 15 guys that probably can play at the SEC level. But the guys that we do have, they have to stay home. And that's where it starts. So we get those guys. We got the guys like Quincy Rhodes, who's been here, coming back for his 4th year. His dad's a good friend of mine. I've known Quincy since he was 5th or 6th grade. So it's good to see those guys stay home, be Razorbacks 4 years, and then those are the guys that you're going to have to build around. So I'm very excited to see that. Now, as far as the state of football at the University of Arkansas and the state of Arkansas itself, man, you got to have somebody in that football program that has ties to the state of Arkansas. Like, you have to have guys that people know, they're familiar with, they've seen this guy play, they feel like they know him, they've grown up with him, and that way you don't have to fight so hard to keep top-notch kids here. But when you have guys that come in and they really don't think Arkansas football is that good, or they're connected in Texas and they're connected in here, then they do not give the coaches and the kids here the respect and attention that they deserve, and that causes a lot of animosity across the state. Arkansas is a very, very, very small place. Like, I don't know of another state where I can just pick up the phone and I can call somebody pretty much in any town from Pine Bluff all the way to Bella Vista, and they're going to know pretty much everybody that played for the Razorbacks over the last 100 years. Like, it is, people say it's a big state, but it's like a big-ass city. You know what I'm saying? So it's not different in Dallas, So everybody in Dallas knows Dallas, but it's such a small state. So, and I just don't think we've done a good job of bringing guys who can help the program and guys who are around here that can help the program. We haven't tapped into that. We haven't identified kids early and help those high school coaches help those kids develop. And we still think that just because we offer a kid in state that they should come here, that is no longer the case. The world is a lot smaller now. So, we have to treat those guys like they're special. We don't have to, it's like you go and ask a girl on a day for a prom and you just think she's just supposed to go with you because you're the man. But you got other guys that sending her flowers and cards and, buying her candy. And you think just because you're the man, that girl's supposed to go to prom with you. It's just a lot of competition out there. We've really done the kids in state. We haven't done the things that we needed to do to keep those kids there, but also the things that we have to do to make this program be successful long term. And we can't lose one or two guys. Like those guys that are SEC caliber guys, those guys have to run through the A on Saturday if we want to compete in the SEC year in and year out.
Right. Carius Kearns is one of those guys I'm thinking of right now. And I hope with the NIL, I hope we get him with this because I don't know.
Break the bank. And that kid went to LSU. He had a tough freshman year, but he went to LSU and started at right tackle and at left tackle.
Yes, he did.
So, and it took him a couple of weeks, but the kid started like 8, 9, 10 games this year. And so, like, when I saw that kid in the portal, and I really was thinking, like, the best thing that Silverfield could have done right now is he got Quincy signed, he got KJ coming back, he got those other two kids. You get Kearns, now you can come back and you probably can get every 2027 in and around this area that you want. lock those kids in, and now we can get in the portal. We can get some guys from JUCO, but we got guys that we know who, unless something just very bad happens, are going to be here for 4 years. And I think that's going to be the blueprint. The years that we've been to the SEC championship, 3 years. I know those 3 years we had McFadden's, Cedric Cobbs, Madre. And it's we had guys like myself and Anthony Lucas and guys that were from Texas and Louisiana, but the nucleus of that team has to come from the state of Arkansas, and that's just we don't produce enough talent to miss on guys. And if you've been at Razorback Stadium when we played Notre Dame and you saw nobody in the stadium halfway through the second quarter, like that probably was the most embarrassing. Like, I don't think I've ever been to a Razorback game. Even when we lost to the Citadel, like that was a tough game. We lost the game at the end, and that was a terrible loss. I've never been in a stadium for a Razorback game that midway through the second quarter, like the freaking place was empty. And so the Razorback fans, man, when you don't have a bunch of guys from Arkansas out there, they're not going to stay in the stands and weather it through with you. So we got to be honest about that.
Are you excited about Arkansas talent overall? And do you mentioned earlier that it's almost like a big city, not necessarily a state feel, right?
Yeah.
But is there an area that if the coach had any sense and listen to you, because you sound very tapped in, to the talent in the state, and you're an Arkansas man through and through. Is there an area where you would recommend that he focuses on in the state?
Central Arkansas, the Little Rock, Conway, Pine Bluff. I think that's probably, that's the heartbeat of it. And then there's going to be some guys down in South Arkansas, which is very rural and kind of under recruited. Like once you kind of get past Pine Bluff, but we just got to do a better job of tapping in. Like, trust me, these kids know who can play and who cannot play. Like, and I tell people all the time, man, and this when I started talking to a coach about a kid, and the coach asked me who else has recruited the kid or how many offers the kid has, like, to me, that tells me, like, either you can't coach or you can't recruit. Man,
he's not doing his job.
Yeah, you get paid $500,000 to freaking evaluate these kids. Don't be asking me, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, do you think he can play at this level? I'm not coaching him. I think he's a kid that you should look at, but I don't get paid $500,000 a year to make these type of decisions, my guy. So I think, I think they got to start. I think it starts in Central Arkansas and then in the South. I think it starts in Central Arkansas and then Central Arkansas starts in the South there. And football is getting better. I don't care what anybody tells you. Arkansas is a basketball school right now. Yep. Arkansas is a basketball state right now, girls and boys basketball. Like, we put out kids that are going to UConn, all over the country and play. You're talking Moses Moody's playing with Golden State right now, Joe Johnson. Like, Arkansas is a basketball state, and you know why? Because it costs a lot less money to have good basketball across the state, right? You only got 10 guys on the basketball team, but to have good football, a good football program takes resources. And so Arkansas is a state that's not necessarily, you don't have a lot of high-income homes in the state. I mean, not income households in the state. So sometimes the football is a little underfunded, and I think that's where the university can come in and kind of help with some of the development and the coaching clinics and using some of these guys who are analysts and who are just walking around the complex every day with their Razorback gear on, but they're not really contributing anything to the program as far as helping the program get better. And I think that's, like, people hate when I say that, but you're walking around with your Razorback gear all the time, and we're 2-10. We haven't won 2 SEC games in the last 5 years. Like, man, get out of the office and get in front of some of these freaking high school coaches and make sure these kids know who you are and they know you by name. And also, man, just get some, have somebody that's answering stuff on Twitter and, keeping people engaged. And I think that's, it's been to be honest, man, it's been very disappointing over the last 20 years just to see the direction of, of the football program and how things have been handled in state. So, and I think we definitely could do better on that end.
All right. Well, hey, before we go any further here, I want to just point out to people, hey, we got quite a few viewers here. We got a legend, JJ Meadors, on the show here. If you're on X, hit us up at College Crew and follow us there. And if you're watching on YouTube, hey, we're at College Sports Crew on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button because that's where we the most people. The more you subscribe, the more we get out to people, and we'd appreciate that. And JD, we're about 10 minutes out from being an hour, and so I just have one other question for you. Well, I do before, and I'm going to let Ian finish up if he has another one here. So you played under Jack Crow, Danny Ford in football, but then you also competed in track and field under John McDonald, legendary, like. No one did it better than that guy. Like, no one. Tell me the difference in coaching styles, and then what is it like to prepare for the Penn relays, Texas relays versus an SEC game, a football game?
Man, I'll tell you what. First of all, my freshman year, I played some. I got my shoulder dislocated, and so I ended up having surgery right before Christmas. So I came back from Christmas, did some rehab, and I was able to start competing with the track and field team towards like right before conference. And I would tell you that first year that I ran track in the SEC was just so humbling. I had been a top 10 sprinter in the nation, a top 5 sprinter in the nation in 2 events. I was Louisiana state champion 55 meters. I was an overall state record. I went to New York, finished 3rd in the nation. Ran 10, 28, 100 meters, 21 flat, 200 meters, man. But I had never finished dead last so many times in my life as I did, running in the SEC. And what I found, man, is like when you're running in the SEC in a conference meet, man, it's really the equivalent of running at Olympic trials because you have so many high-level guys. And at that time, it wasn't very much pro. So the best guys and the most talented guys were guys that were still pretty much running in college or who had just finished their college. So it was just the level of a competition, man. It was just high. Like in the whole time I ran track, I never ran in the finals of the 100 meters or the 200 meters in the SEC. You can't, when you're playing football and running track, I mean, it's hard enough to do it if you're just running track. And then when you're running track and Danny Ford is your football coach and I'm going to football practice on Monday and I'm going to track practice on Tuesday, it was hard to compete. So, but I did better on the 4x1. I ran on the 4x1. We finished, I think, 3rd in I think the top finish we had was 3rd at the SEC conference meet behind LSU and Kentucky. They had guys that ran, both teams had guys that ran in the Olympics. They ran on the 4x1. And so that part of it, man, was just great because when you got football players and they wrestled or they ran track, I can tell you one thing, those guys know how to compete individually. Like they know how to go out there and get it, they know how to go out there and get it done. So that's the one thing that I really learned from John McDonald and the track guys as far as winning conference. We won conference every year, and it was crazy. We won Triple Crown. So we won nationals in cross country, indoor, outdoor, 4 years in a row. So really, that's 12. You got to think that's 12 natties in 4 years, and that's also 12 freaking conference championships in 4 years. And so, but it was just Coach McDonald, man. People say Coach McDonald was one of the most fiery coaches that you ever wanted to be around. But he didn't really have to raise his voice. It was just the expectations. But I'll tell you what, I probably saw more fights at track practice than I saw at football practice. Like, if people were like, what? I was like, man, I seen cross-country guys stepping on each other, come to the side, duke it out, get back on the line and run 22, 300 after that. Like, it was just the level of competition was just so insane. And then you're also talking about you got Mike Conley, who's getting ready for the Olympics training there. Man, I tell people all the time, man, I've been around a lot of guys that had a cup of coffee in the NBA and the NFL. I was at Arkansas where we had at least 9 people that got on a podium in the Olympics.
And that's hard. You don't see that often.
To make it to the Olympics, but I'm talking about dudes that stood on the podium at the Olympics. Like, and so it's just the way.
Brush that soda off, brother.
Man, listen, you know what I'm talking about? So it was just great for me to be around guys that competed. You know, it's the expectations were crazy, the competition level was crazy. But when you pull up, it was like being, I tell people all the time, it's like being with the Beatles, man. You pull up to a Penn Relays or a Texas Relays and you got the Arkansas gear on, man, you are the Beatles. Like, you have high school kids want your autograph. They want to, you know, give my information to Coach McDonald. I want to come to Arkansas. But also, everybody out there that on that track, oh, they trying to kill you. Like, you're getting their best. You know, I can remember one time I was at Penn Relays, and I don't know if you remember this guy's name, Tyrone Wheatley.
Yep.
Man, dude was huge. He was running back at Michigan, but the dude was like 6'3", 200 and something pounds. And we were running, I think it was the 4x2 or the sprint medley. And I was in the lane, I was standing. Tyrone Wheatley was standing on one side of me in the bullpen getting ready. And I look over here, and Anthony Dorsett, Tony Dorsett's son, he was at Pitt. He was running track at Pitt. And both of these guys are like 6'2", 200 and something pounds. And I'm sitting here with my Arkansas stuff on, weighing about 150. And I'm like, man, these dudes are freaking huge. And so, but man, it was just great. I tell people all the time, man, I learned a lot about being a team athlete with football, how to work with others, how to be successful in a team environment. Man, I learned from track and field. I learned from Coach McDonald, like how to succeed, how to set high expectations, but also go meet those expectations. I think one of the things Coach McDonald always said was meet the moment. Like,
I like that.
We meet the moment. We don't, man, I mean, you know, it's great to finish in the top three, but we never got off the bus. I mean, I don't want to say we knew what we were going to be on the podium, but we didn't expect to be anything less than first place. And even when I tell my kids, man, I tell my kids, they crack up. I say, man, the only place is first place. Like, and that was their mindset. But those guys, everything they did was at a national championship level. They competed at a national championship level. They practiced. They weight room. And I think the biggest thing that I remember about Coach McDonald was after my freshman year, and, you know, you got to think I had been top 5 in 3 events in the country. And I was rehabbing, going to football, going to track, and I really wanted to quit track honestly, I was going to quit track after spring because I wanted to be a starter on the football team. And Coach McDonald called me in. He said, "Kid," he said, "I met you, man. You were smiling, kid." He said, "You're not smiling, kid." You know, he said, what's going on?" And I was like, "Coach, man, I'm rehabbing. I'm going to these track meets. I'm getting dead last, like dudes I never heard of from schools I never heard of, or just I'm looking at the bottom of their shoes and the back of their singlets running, man. I just, you know, I don't know if I can do this." He said, "Kid," he said, "you're 5'5", you weigh 100 and nothing." He said, "If you don't run fast, you're not going to be out there." He's like, "You can go lift the weight," because he was like, "Man, you can go lift the weights." He said, "What you going to be, 155, 160? He said, "You're still the smallest dude out there." He said, "Stay with me." He said, "Stay with me. I'm going to get you back in shape." He's like, "You're just out of shape, bro. You just had a shoulder surgery. You weigh 20 pounds more than you weighed last year." And he said, "Man, just regardless of how you do," he said, "you're going to be better off if you stay with this program." And then I looked 4 years later, I was the leading receiver in the history of the school. My senior year, I set a single season record for receptions, called the winning catch versus Alabama, played in the SEC championship game. And the weight room was part of that. But, you know, 150-pound guy, 155-pound guy, that doesn't make that big of a difference if you can't freaking run. And so, man, I've always respected him for that, man. And then I think the second piece is that he always took me to conference meets. And I think most people don't understand is that, like in the SEC, you can only take a certain number of athletes to the conference meet. Like, you can run guys unattached all year, and, you know, but when it gets to the conference meet, there's only a certain number of guys that can actually compete. And he would always take me. And sometimes I remember I went my freshman year, and I had missed most of the year, and I ran in conference at the 55. And I was like, "Why am I going?" And he said, and I never forget this, because there were guys, like, you're in the room and the guy's reading off the list of everybody that's going. And these are guys that maybe have scored points at conference meets in the past, are not going, and then you got a football player that's been out here a month and he's going, and they did not like that. Like, I mean, it's like this is a different type of environment. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, people sitting to me like, why is this dude going and I'm not going? And I remember asking Coach McDonald, I was like, man, like, why am I going? And he said, because you're going to run the first leg on the 4x1 and outdoor, and we're going to win. He's like, we're going to win conference. Like, he just straight up. He's like, look, I did the points. We're going to win conference, but we're going to need points in the 4x1 if we're going to win outdoor. And, you know, you need to be able to run in these type of meets. And you know, a month later, I'm out there running the 4x1 first leg at I think in Knoxville. We're at Tennessee. So he just knew his stuff, man. He was just one of the best, just highly respected, not just in NCAA, but just across the world. I think people, they call it athletics, we call it track and field, but over in Europe they call it athletics.
Right.
And dude, he's world renowned. And he's, when I look back at my life, man, and I had so many people who poured into me and that I've gotten an opportunity to spend time with and be around, man, he's probably has been as impactful as anybody, you know, as any coach or any mentor, or anybody that I've had in my life. And I'm very blessed to have had this, spend some time with him.
Good. Hey, Ian, we're just went over hour. Do you have a final question? Because I don't want to close. I want you to get that final question. Being a Bama fan and he's a Bama killer.
No, we talked it all, but I just wanted to, you know, thank Mr. Meadors for this opportunity and, you know, to get the skinny, you know, on the play and really, you know, given the opportunity to talk about it from the perspective of we just feel you didn't catch the ball, but why that game was such a shocker, you know, to the Alabama nation. So thank you so much, sir. And,
good, man. I do have. Can I tell you just one funny thing real quick about Alabama?
Go ahead, man.
Man, I'm gonna tell this story too because this is one of my favorite stories, man. The year before we beat Alabama, we went there and they beat us like 70-something to 3 or 70-something to nothing. It was crazy, but yeah, there was a DB there by the name of Antonio Langham. He's a college football Hall of Famer. He was SEC Defensive Player of the Year. In the very first SEC game, he picked off Shane Matthews from Florida, ran that thing all the way back, and that's really what got Alabama back rolling and got them on the map. But man, I played 36, 37 games. From my sophomore year, once I became a starter, I caught a pass in every game. I never was shut out. But there's this one asterisk. One asterisk game. We played Alabama there. They killed us 70 to something. But before the game, well, we won the first 2 games. We played, I think, South Carolina, SMU, and I played well. It was my sophomore year, and I was like, okay. You know, I had caught a touchdown, caught 8 or 9 passes. And so before the game, Antonio Langham comes up and he says, Meadors. I said, what's up? So I thought he was just saying hello. I shook his hand. He said, hey. He said, man, if you don't cut block me today, he said, I'll let you catch a couple of balls. And I was like, is this dude joking? You know what I'm saying? Like, and he was like, nah, man, I'm serious, man. He's like, man, we don't like cut blocking, man. So, like, listen, you know, he said, the coaches told me don't let you catch nothing. He said, but if you don't cut block me today, he said, I'll let you catch a couple. And I said, I was like, man, I said, man, don't let me catch anything. I said, the only dudes that can stop me playing on Sundays. I said, this Saturday. You know what I'm saying? I'm not worried about DBs that play on Saturday. And he looked at me, he said, little man, this ain't SMU. So I said, so we go out there and we're on the plane. We go out there and they kill us. They kill us. And we're on the plane, so I caught one pass that game. It was a quick screen. So, man, they threw the ball to me, that quick screen, man. As soon as I caught it, he on me, he tackles me. So I'm like, I catch one pass. So we're on the plane coming back from Alabama, man, and they're passing the stats. You know how they have the stats on the plane, and the coaches have, like, highlighted everything. So the stats come back. I'm looking at the stats, and I look at the receiving yards, and I can see, like, this highlight on there. And it says, J.J. Meadors, 1 catch, -3 yards.
Oh.
And this dude tackled me, like he was on my butt so tight that I caught a screen pass, he tackled me in the backfield. And I tell people all that, I said, man, I learned a lot that day. I said, I learned how to stay locked in, how to compete against guys at a high level, and the Alabama is definitely not SMU. But the fun thing about it, we talked about this not too long ago. He actually coaches up at Alabama A&M. He coaches with my buddy up there, and then also the head coach is Sam Shade. Sam Shade is the head coach. They're coaching on the same staff at Alabama. And then I was telling them that story, and they were cracking us. And, man, you guys were, I say, the 90, 91, 92, man, they just had a stifling defense there, man. That was a great time.
Right.
I don't want to talk too much, man. I'm a salesman, so I'm going to keep talking. But, man, I do just appreciate you having me today. And we definitely, man, just praying for a big year for Arkansas football.
Well, I tell you what, we are. I am too. Just make us relevant again in the SEC. It'll be a good start. And JJ, hey, look, I appreciate you coming on, and I know Ian does.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And you are a friend of this podcast, Veteran Sports Voice podcast. Anytime you want to come on and talk ball, you just let us know. We got a spot for you, big guy. I promise you.
Well, absolutely. Let's reconnect again during at some point during football season, and definitely would love to kind of see how things are going to go. But I always tell fans, they always want to fire the coach. But when you fire the coach, you really set the program back 2 seasons. So, hopefully, I think they want to blow it up. I say, but if you blow it up, you got to start all over. So, but hopefully, man, we'll come in and we'll have a good season. We got some good nucleus coming back, and I'm looking forward to it. And I'm glad I got a chance to talk to you guys on this beautiful Monday.
Well, absolutely. We appreciate you. And everybody out there, hey, we went over a little bit, but that's what happens when you got a legend out here we like talking to. Hey, and you know what? This is New Year's starting to come up here, and I'm going to do this off the fly right here. So this is a Veteran Sports Voice podcast, and it is college sports spoken by guys who served, myself and Ian. And we're also a platform out here for the veterans to lead. Hey, this New Year's, we got guys and girls and ladies, men and women that are serving all across this world in protection and defense of our country. And we got veterans here that are fighting. Some aren't, but some are fighting battles that you can't see. And we also have our Gold Star families who gave up the ultimate sacrifice. They lost a loved one in defense of this nation. Keep all them in mind this holiday season. And if you know that veteran, you see that veteran, especially the one that says he's fine, check on them. Check on them right away. Call them. Make that call. Check on them for us. All right. And we're here. We appreciate you guys. And JJ, thank you again for coming on. We appreciate you, my guy.
And thank both you guys for your service too, man. That's
yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, guys. That's it. We salute, guys. We'll see y'all next week.